I want to tell you about 3 different children living in 3 different homes. None of them were hit, none of them were screamed at. If you had met any of their families, you probably would have said what everyone else said. What a close family. What a good kid. But each of these 3 children grew into an adult carrying something they couldn't quite name: a persistent hollowness, compulsive, anxious habits, a pervasive silence. I'm going to walk you through all 3 stories. Stay with me, because the one that hits you might not be the first one. Listen closely to see if you recognize your own experience in any of them. To understand what happened to these children, we have to shift how we look at trauma. We have to stop looking for the visible harm and start investigating the negative space, the things that were completely missing. Here's the first story. She was 7 years old the first time her mother hung up the phone crying, and instead of being comforted, she became the comforter. She didn't understand the fight or the bill. She only understood that her mother was in pain, and that if she was calm and helpful enough, the pain would pass faster. In a healthy environment, emotional support is supposed to flow down from the adult to the child. When that flow reverses, a 7-year-old learns that emotional regulation is a transactional tool. Love becomes something you earn by managing everyone else's feelings before your own. That girl grew up to be the friend who holds everyone together, the employee who can't say no, the partner who senses a mood shift before it's even spoken. Everyone calls her responsible. She calls it exhausting, and she's never been able to say exactly why. Her mother used to call her through tears and say, "You're my little rock." That isn't a testament to a child's maturity. It is a boundary violation that strips a child of their right to actually be dependent. In the second story, a 9-year-old boy fell off his bike. His knee was bleeding and he ran inside crying. His father didn't look up from the television and simply told him to stop crying and toughen up. He stopped crying, not because the pain in his knee went away. He stopped because he learned that his feelings were an inconvenience. To maintain a connection with his father and avoid being a burden, he decided that when he was upset, the problem was never the situation. The problem was him. By 11, he was remarkably good at not crying in front of anyone. Everyone said he was easygoing and low maintenance. Today, when someone asks how he's feeling, he goes quiet. He reflexively suppresses his emotions, because some part of him is convinced that honest vulnerability will push people away. We often praise this kind of behavior in young boys. But forced childhood stoicism is not resilience. It is a defensive strategy where a child erases the validity of their own emotional reality. Our third story involves a 15-year-old girl. By every outside account, she and her mother were remarkably close. Her mother told everyone they were best friends, and that her daughter told her everything. What that actually meant was that her diary wasn't private. When the daughter started liking music or boys her mother didn't approve of, she felt a disproportionate, toxic guilt. The parent's presence slowly expands and eclipses the child's natural attempts to separate. Slowly, without ever deciding to, she started liking what her mother liked and believing what her mother believed. By the time she moved into her first apartment at 22, she stood alone and realized she didn't actually know what she liked to eat when no one else was choosing for her. Everyone called it closeness. In reality, invasive parental closeness is the active prevention of a child developing an independent identity. It is a childhood spent as an extension of someone else. 3 different children, 3 different homes. From the outside, each one looked like the strong one, the easy child, the best friend. Society mislabels these survival roles as highly positive attributes, but look closely at the negative space in all 3 environments. None of them were allowed to have needs of their own. None of them were allowed to feel without being corrected. And none of them were given the space to become someone separate from the people who raised them. This structural void has a name: emotional neglect. It describes the quiet space where support and validation were never provided to the child. If any of these stories felt uncomfortably familiar, you are not overreacting. Naming this experience is the necessary first step before your psychological recovery can begin. Reclaiming the emotional self requires moving beyond recognition and into the active work of repatterning how you interact with your own needs. Step 1 involves separating your identity from your survival role. For 1 week, every time you catch yourself managing someone else's feelings before your own, silently name it. Tell yourself, that's the role, that's not me. Right now, the goal is simply to observe the pattern. Step 2. Pause before you apologize. Before giving that reflexive sorry, take 3 seconds and ask yourself a simple question. Did I actually do something wrong? Or am I apologizing for the act of having a personal need? Step 3 is about rebuilding trust in your own feelings. Twice a day, ask yourself what you are feeling right now, before anyone else's reaction matters. Identify just one raw word, like restless or content, without adding any context or justifications. Step 4 is to choose one boundary you've never allowed yourself. Keep it small, an unexplained opinion, an unanswered text, or a private part of your life you don't share. This proves to your nervous system that autonomy and separateness do not result in abandonment. Finally, Step 5 requires you to dedicate space to grieve the childhood you didn't get. Reprogramming your behaviors often hits a wall if you don't first acknowledge the weight of what was missing. This grief creates the internal room for a new, independent self to grow. You are teaching your nervous system a safety it was never given the chance to build. This is the slow, consistent work of finding yourself. If you want to keep doing this work with me, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.